In the last video, we talked about discipleship. It's the idea that we're coming together to train, to do work, and to discipline ourselves. So in this video, we're going to talk about what it is that we're training ourselves to do, what it is that we're disciplining ourselves to accomplish. Now, the best place to figure out what it is we were put here to do would be to go back to the very beginning. So let's do that. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 1, and it says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them," now this is the first command, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." So if I had to answer the question, what were we put here to do originally, in its simplest form, I would say the answer is righteous reproduction. We were made in the image of God, and then he says, go forth and multiply and fill the earth. Now this also sets the stage for the big picture of what the scriptures are all about, and that is God is setting up his perfect kingdom here on the earth. Starts in Genesis, finishes in Revelation. God's mission is to take these people made in his image, righteous, holy, and to spread that all over the face of the earth. This idea is absolutely central to the Bible story, the idea of go forth and multiply. And I want to show you a couple, actually 3 different areas where when God resets his program and he takes it in a different direction, the first command is go forth and multiply. And the first one we just saw is in Genesis 1:28, when God tells Adam, go forth and multiply. The second one, look in Genesis chapter 9, verse 1, and that's when God looked at what had happened with Adam. He multiplied, but it was unrighteous, and the whole world was filled with unrighteousness, that God wiped out all the unrighteous people and then restarted with Noah. And if you read chapter 9, verse 1 in Genesis, as soon as Noah gets off the boat, God's first command to him is go forth and multiply. Now, if you're familiar with the story, you know that Noah's descendants didn't do so great, but God had promised Noah that he would never wipe out the human population again with a flood. So in Genesis 35:11, dealing with the man Jacob, God starts again by saying, all right, I'm going to start a new nation in the midst of all these nations. And in 35:11 of Genesis, he says to Jacob again, be fruitful and multiply. And it was from Jacob, also known as Israel, that God formed the nation of Israel. So as we see with Adam and with Noah and with Jacob or Israel, God is giving them the same mission, go forth and multiply. Now the Bible, and especially the Old Testament, is filled with laws and commands. And I would say that all of those would be sub-commands under this overarching command, which is go forth and multiply and do it righteously. So here's all these other sub-commands and laws and rules that God gives, but they're all pointing towards that same end. Be righteous, make babies. Be righteous, multiply. Be righteous, fill the earth. Okay, to show just how important this was within humanity, I want to pick a couple of examples to show what it was like for a woman who was not able to have children. The first is in Genesis chapter 30, verses 1. And this is where Rachel, who was unable to bear children, her expression was, she envied her sister, and she said to Jacob, give me children or I'll die. Now that's not an exaggeration. Rachel was very frustrated because she was not able to accomplish the purpose that she was put here on this earth for. And so likewise, let's look at Hannah. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 10, it says, she was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. Now, that's a woman who is desperate enough that she's weeping and praying in the temple and even trying to negotiate and make deals with the Lord just to have a child. All right, and the third example, just to show how central the idea of reproduction was, comes from Proverbs chapter 30, verses 15 and 16, where it says, 3 things are never satisfied. And the first it says is Sheol, or the grave, is never satisfied. It never has enough. The barren womb, and that's the point I wanted to make, the barren womb is never satisfied and never has enough. And the other 2 examples it gives is the land that's never thirsty or never satisfied with enough water, and the fire which is constantly consuming, and it also never says enough. All right, so the point is, We were put here to reproduce, not just to reproduce, but to be righteous and reproduce righteousness, to fill the earth with God's glory using the people who were created in his image. Now in this video, I just wanted to go back to the roots and talk about what we were put here for, and to show that that's the same command and the same theme that was repeated over and over again in the Old Testament. And now in the next video, I want to go ahead and take a look at what changed with Jesus and also what stayed the same. And if it's not obvious yet, what we're aiming to do here is to just narrow down and answer that fundamental question: what is the purpose of life? What was I put here to do? So that we can get about doing it, and so that we can discipline ourselves and train ourselves to do it better. Hey, I just want to say thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.